Hello everyone, Carnasa here, and welcome back to Coming Home, and welcome to the first part of a kind of mini-series within this series. This is going to be Saving Private Ziggy Part 1, and, well, we need to go and rescue Ziggy Kerman from the depths of Hydrus. Unfortunately, a couple of episodes ago, we did, well, he got eaten up by that world, and I don't want to leave a Kerbal behind, so we are going to be sending a rather large interplanetary mission to go and rescue him. But at the beginning of this episode, what we are going to do is, well, the Rhode Planetary Space Alliance does seem to be running into a few issues with funding. So, we are going to grab ourselves a Chimera Fury, and we are going to attempt to fail landing boosters, apparently. There we go, that one blew up. Yes, no, we're going to go over to Armstrong. We're going to visit one of those rare metals and exotic minerals extraction facilities, one of the flower ore miners, if you will. I think that's what they were called anyway. And we are going to attempt to fill this up and then return it to Rhode. Those two resources are worth quite a considerable amount of money, and we need a lot for the missions to come in this mini-series. We need an awful lot. Here we are coming down now to one of those miners. Davis Kerman and Damien von Kerman are the two brave Kerbinauts aboard this mission. We can see we have got Davis Kerman out, and this is where I was attempting to connect these two craft together. Unfortunately, I forgot to place anything on the Chimera that was going to be capable of doing that, which meant we were unable to refuel this and move over the exotic minerals and rare metals. Luckily, I am able to move some of those over using the planetary logistics that is part of USI. However, we couldn't move over the full amount that I wanted. And with that, what we're going to do is we are going to take off again and return to Rhode. Fortunately, even though we were unable to refuel, we still had enough fuel to get us into a nice low circular Rhode orbit, which is going to be great for attempting to land the Chimera, because, well, we're not going to be going as fast when we enter the atmosphere. Speaking of which, we are now entering Rhode's atmosphere, so that means we are going to retract the ladder, make sure that everything is prepared for when we do want to eventually land this beast of a spacecraft. That means we need to go around and activate all of the parachutes so that they do hopefully deploy. That is one thing that I am having a bit of an issue with the Chimera series of spacecraft. The parachutes do like to decide to cut when we are still quite high above the ground, as can be demonstrated right now. So we end up hitting the ground at 100 meters per second. Most of the spacecraft is destroyed. However, the rare metals, exotic minerals are both safe, and so is the crew. So I would call that a somewhat successful mission. So with that being done, we are going to be turning to the fuel tanker variant of the Chimera, which is currently parked at definitely not another gateway. We need a lot of liquid fuel and oxidizer in order to power the missions that we are going to be sending over to Hydrus later on in this episode. So rather than shipping it up from Rhode, what I will do is I will send this over to Armstrong, and we will pick that up from some of the ore miners that we have located on that moon. It means we are going to be saving a lot of money on liquid fuel and oxidizer, and also on missions to send that liquid fuel and oxidizer over to definitely not another gateway. This is the main reason why I set up this system, so we could save a lot of funding. And I would like to say that I did not just do one of these missions, and I also did not just do one of the rare metals and exotic minerals missions either. I think I did 5 of the rare metals missions and 3 of these. However, I did not want to show every single one of those missions. I just wanted to show at least one to show that I am doing it, because let's be honest, if I showed you doing the exact same mission 8 times, well, that would have gotten really boring really quickly, but we can see we have filled up this fuel tanker variant of the Chimera, and what we are going to be doing is taking off from Armstrong and returning to definitely not another gateway with a whole load of liquid fuel and oxidizer. Like I said, I think this took 3 trips. There we go. We can see we are going to come screaming past, definitely not another gateway, but we were able to perform a successful docking and transfer a load of liquid fuel over. So with that being done, we do have a few material kits and specialized parts that we are able to start the construction of the first part of the mission to go to Hydrus, and that is going to be the Port Hydrus construction port. That is an awful lot of ports in a single sentence, but what this is going to be is going to be essentially the part that we do have on Definitely Not Another Gateway that constructs our spacecraft. This is going to be a vital part in this mission to hopefully start constructing some new vehicles around Hydrus. But now we will be turning our focus to the DCCS, the Junior-class construction supplies launched on top of a super-duper heavy reusable rocket, the SDHRR for short. This is by far my largest vehicle in my fleet. This can launch about 400 tons to low road orbit. Reason being, that is exactly how much we need to be able to produce a Junior-class interplanetary craft in low road orbit from Definitely Not Another Gateway. As you can see there, the reusability feature of this spacecraft has a lot left to be desired. But there we go, we have met up with Definitely Not Another Gateway. And what we are going to be doing with this is we are going to be supplying around 180,000 material kits, about 30,000 specialized parts, and because we have that much on board this spacecraft, the single launch of one of these costs around 2 million funds. That is exactly why I had to do the funding missions earlier on in this episode, so that I could actually afford to create these. Here we are trying to land the old supplies, and once again, failing spectacularly because we landed in an ocean. And ocean landings are always bad, but there we have it. The first of the Junior-class interplanetary ships has been created from Definitely Not Another Gateway, and this is going to be supplies that we are going to be sending over to the eventual Port Hydrus. What I am doing now is I am raising the orbit of this craft because we are reliant on liquid core NTRs, so the burn time is going to be quite a while to get that interplanetary transfer, so I wanted to have a slightly higher orbit so we didn't run the risk of running back into road. That would have been really bad. There we go, we are just circularizing now at around 300,000 meters above the surface of road. We can quickly come into map view, use MechJeb's maneuver planner to plot ourselves a nice transfer window over to Hydrus, and then we are going to be done with the supplies module, which means it is time to turn focus to Port Hydrus itself, the main feature of this mission. Yet again, we are going to be creating this from Definitely Not Another Gateway. I left this in just to show you how long this takes to build. Even just clicking on the spacecraft in the craft selector, it took a really long time. And yes, this is also sped up to 4 times as well. So it took a really long time. These were big craft. But there we go, we have it. We have the main craft for this mission. This is Port Hydrus. And we can see basically what this is going to be is we have the interplanetary tug, the Junior-class tug. We have 2 rovers on board this craft, we have 2 landers, we have a space station core, and we also have a returner module. And just one thing that I would like to say about the rovers that we have strapped to the side of this massive interplanetary craft, they are not just rovers, no! They can fly, and they can also enter the atmosphere of Hydrus with no ill effects, so that's going to be very exciting to see those in action in the next episode of this mini-series. And one thing I would like to say is I am burning away from Definitely Not Another Gateway with this because, my god, the frames whilst those 2 craft were together was appalling. But now we are going to be taking a break from saving Private Ziggy by visiting Kerbin One, which is going to finally be leaving Scathe. This mission has been in orbit around Scathe for a really long time. You can see, if you look in the top left corner, our mission time is currently 3 years and 210 days. It has been here for a very long time indeed. You may have noticed there that I forgot to deactivate the engine on the front of this spacecraft, which meant we were burning against that engine, which really wasn't ideal. But I did manage to notice that eventually, and we were able to start performing our burn to leave Scathe's sphere of influence and send this craft, our first ever crewed interplanetary mission, back to road. Like I said earlier, these guys have been around Scathe for a very long time, so I am sure they are very excited to be able to finally return home. This was the crew that did also land on Sindo. I did want to go through a Scathe landing, but unfortunately that lander module, which we can see at the end of the craft, did not have enough Delta V to touch down safely on the surface. It was very tight. We might have just been able to make it, but I didn't want to risk that, so we went and visited Sindo instead. And there we go, we have now finished our burn to return back to Rhode. And you can see we have an encounter. And we are also going to be doing a flyby past of Ash as well. So this ship has been everywhere. We've been to Skaith, we've been to Cindo, we've gone past Ash. I don't know if we visited anywhere else on the way out. It's been a while since I did this mission, so I may have forgotten. But the crew of Kerbin One, they have visited a lot more than most have. So I'm hoping that they will gain a rather large amount of experience from this mission. That would be incredibly nice. We are going to leave this for now, and we will see this when it returns. So in order to send over a vastly experienced crew over to Hydrus to perform the extraction of Ziggy Kerman, I am going to be doing a little bit of crew rotation now because I want all of my best pilots on board that mission. So I am going to be sending the crews that were located at Definitely Not Jamestown and the Lure surface base back to Rhode. I almost said Kerbin then. Almost said Kerbin. Back to Rhode, because then that way I have the best pick of astronauts. Obviously, we do have a few on some missions that I can't send over, such as Kerbin 1 and Kerbin 2, but we can get the best that we have on offer in the Rhode system anyway. So we have returned the crew of Definitely Not Jamestown to a low Rhode orbit. I didn't want to land this quite yet, because I wanted to send the crew of the Lure surface base back first, so that I don't accidentally send crew back to Definitely Not Jamestown that were already there. This way, if I land one first and then send out a replacement mission, I know that that can go to Definitely Not Jamestown, and we won't be sending these same Kerbinauts back to the same environment. I'm sure the crew that were on Definitely Not Jamestown were rather bored of the grey rockiness of Armstrong, and some of those would quite like to see Lure. So here we can see we are now in the atmosphere. This is the craft that was at Lure. We are once again going to try and deploy all of those parachutes, and they work. This time, for whatever reason, we didn't have the parachute cut. I did toggle ground tether as soon as we hit the ground though, so that, well, it didn't go rolling down that mountain. That was a rather steep slope, and that would have been a terrible shame if that would have smashed into the ground because we landed at a rather wonky angle. Now what we are going to be doing is we are basically going to be taking that crew, minus a few people, minus a few Kerbinauts that we want to keep for the Hydrus mission, and we are going to send these over to Definitely Not Jamestown on Armstrong. Like I said, I knew these guys were on Lure, so we could send them over to this other base, and they all be happy with their change of environment. They didn't really get a long stay at Rhode, but oh well. I think they'd been on that Lure surface base for quite a while, but they don't get any breaks. We work our Kerbinauts to the bone, but we are going to be returning to that original Chimera, the Chimera Fury that was originally at Definitely Not Jamestown, and we are going to be attempting to land this at Rhode. Once again, I am trying to get as close to the Kerbal Space Center as I possibly can. Doesn't really do anything. We get more funding back for the parts that we have recovered. However, this isn't filled up with anything like rare metals or exotic Oh, no. It is, because it was Definitely Not Jamestown, and we can send rare metals and exotic minerals from that location. So yes, no, we did have rare metals and exotic minerals on this, so it would be nicer to get as close to the Kerbal Space Center as we possibly can. That way, we are going to get much more funding back, because obviously when you move further away from the KSC, well, you get less and less funds the further away you are. But you can see I started my burn a little bit too late, and we are now currently going screaming over the surface of the Space Center and heading towards the massive ocean that lies just beyond the mountains of the Kerbal Space Center on Rhode. And I will not lie, I was a little bit concerned that we were coming down over an ocean, because as we have already seen in this episode, ocean landings really are not the best for these spacecraft. No, things go badly when we land in the water, and I guess our Kerbals probably would rather not get wet. Maybe some of them can't swim. Maybe some of them didn't have swimming lessons when they were younger, and they would much rather land safely on the ground. So what I am going to be doing in order to try and do that is I saw this little island chain, and I thought, let's try and point our rocket towards that a little bit, burn that engine so we make our way over to that island. But there we go, we can see the drogue parachutes have deployed, and we are starting to slow down this spacecraft. There go the main parachutes, and now, this did happen. The parachute cut, and we came down at about 80 meters per second. And unfortunately, the entire spacecraft was destroyed. With the rapid unplanned disassembly of Chimera Fury, we are no longer going to be using the Chimera program. It is time for an upgrade. Due to the disastrous events of this mission, we are going to be looking into something bigger and better, and hopefully something that isn't completely reliant on these dodgy parachutes to get our Kerbinauts safely back to the ground. This will be a little bit of a problem though, due to the fact that I was going to be using the Chimera program to transport a crew over to Port Hydrus so that we could send them on their merry way to Hydrus. So what we are going to have to do is we are going to come back to the drawing board and design some kind of new system that will be able to send a crew to Hydrus so they can go and rescue Ziggy Kerman. Talking of Ziggy Kerman, it is now finally time to return to the interplanetary craft that we have set up in a low road orbit. And what we are going to be doing is we are going to be sending Port Hydrus over uncrewed. I do have a new rocket that we are going to launch that is going to send the crew over to Hydrus and then rendezvous with that space station once they get there. The first module that we are going to be sending over is going to be the supplies, and that probably really doesn't make a lot of sense. You'd expect to send the actual station over first, then send the supplies. However, according to MechJeb's transfer window planner, this was the best way to go about doing this. Seems a little bit bizarre to me, but oh well. We have lit up those 7 liquid core NTRs. Yes, we are using 7 of those, and one of them, the one in the middle of that ring, is slightly larger. I have TweakScaled that up slightly just to provide a little bit of extra thrust. These engines are incredibly efficient. If I recall correctly off the top of my head, I might be wrong here, I haven't checked the stats for a while, I'm fairly sure they have a vacuum impulse of around 1,400 seconds, which is insane. This is much more efficient than the Kerbin class interplanetary ships that we did see one of earlier on in this episode, and we are probably going to be using these for quite a while. Well, until at least we unlock maybe some more advanced fusion drives. That's going to be very, very nice once we unlock those. And of course, because I am playing with Interstellar Extended even, I got the name of the mod mixed up there. No, we are going to be unlocking some very, very tasty engines indeed. And hopefully, as soon as I get the crew of Kerbin One back, we should be gaining an awful lot of science, which will help unlock some of those nicer engines. So I don't know how long we're going to be using the Juna class for. I mean, it took me a real long time to develop that, and I would like to use it for a few extra missions. I would potentially like to use it to go over to Gateway as well. I'm fairly sure it can go to Gateway, and I'm fairly sure we can visit some of the moons. But here we have the main mission, the main section of Port Hydrus, and there, the engines have lit up. Once again, those 7 liquid core NTRs have fired up, and we are sending this behemoth of an interplanetary ship over to Hydrus. We can see the 4 spacecraft led out there. We can see the 2 flying rovers. We saw the 2 landers and, well, some solar panels. There is a space station core in there somewhere, a return module as well. And the reason why I have that gigantic heat shield on the back, it's kind of for style points. It makes it look way more interplanetary. And also, I needed a massive thermal radiation systems so that we could bleed off some of those heat, some of that heat even, from those liquid NTRs. Yes, they provided a lot of heat that we did need to dissipate, and it did just about manage to do that successfully. You can see the radiators on the several different components of this craft are also heating up. so we were having to use those as well. But we have completed our burn with Port Hydrus. We are on our way over to Hydrus, and well, it's just going to be a while in transit until we get there, but do not worry, I will skip ahead through that. I am going to time warp, but we will see the arrival of that in the next episode. In Saving Ziggy Kerman Part 2, Saving Private Ziggy Part 2 even. And I am hoping that that episode won't take too long to produce due to the fact that I have designed most of the components for the mission already. So we should see that fairly soon. Now we are going to be turning to the crew that are going to be sent on OZE. Operation Ziggy Extraction, of course, that's what that stands for. And we are going to be using one of those super duper heavy reusable rockets for this launch yet again, because this is, well, it's quite a heavy payload to get up to a low road orbit. It has a massive crew on board here. So much so that I was completely unable to read out the names of the Kerbinauts that were on this mission. If you do want to check out and see who was on there, I did put that up in this video, so it might be worth pausing it at that moment just so you can see who is on board this mission, because I don't think it would be possible to read that quickly. I'm not sure. It was over in the blink of an eye. It was over very, very quickly. But you can see we have made it into orbit with this new craft, and we are using one of those nuclear aerospike engines yet again, because these provide an awful lot of thrust, and they are very, very, very efficient as well. We only have to use liquid fuel, which is nice, and yeah, it's an all-round good engine, especially for doing something like this, sending a massive, massive crew over interplanetary. I believe this craft is more than capable of sending, I think, about 32 Kerbals at once. I'm not going to be sending anywhere near that much, though, because, to be honest, we don't have the supplies to be able to do that. We are using the USI life support mod, and on this, I do have recyclers, enough for, I think, about 14 Kerbals. We also have some agroponics units, so we should be able to produce some food. And yeah, no, we've got fertilizer, we've got everything. So I am not worried at all about the crew running out of snacks on their way over to Hydrus, which we can see we have now got ourselves an encounter. And I am probably just going to try wiggling that around a little bit to try and get a better one. But we have now departed road, or we are in the process of departing road. We are going to perform another quick little burn just there, just like that, so we can get as close to Hydrus as possible. Obviously, I do want all of these to be in a similar inclination when we do get over to Hydrus, so that it is rather easy to rendezvous everything, which is why I am performing this bit of a maneuver here, or making a maneuver node even, to try and get this as equatorial as possible. I feel it would be a lot easier to rendezvous doing that. But there we go, with that burn done, and with the node all sorted out, we are sending this crew of 9 brave Kerbinauts all the way over to Hydrus. And we have one mission on our mind. We are going to be going, and we are going to be saving Ziggy Kerman from the depths of Hydrus, from the ground that swallowed him. We are ready, we have prepared everything that we need, and that will come in the next episode, in part 2 of Saving Private Ziggy. But first, what's to come?